we're doing a lot of generative AI experimentation at the moment. So a lot of good work is happening in the sandboxes, but it's more driven by a desire to do some AI because of, either it's shareholder pressure or business pressure or whatever. But it's not really. The research from IBM Institute for Business Value, as well as IDC, shows that we're not really focusing on the core business problems. So we're sort of touching the edges of some productivity use cases and not really the useful use cases that will move and change businesses. So the main challenge at the moment is that the experimentation that we do isn't driven by business requirements. And so to me and to IBM, that means we need to introduce a level of governance. That means the business drives the requirement for the generative AI and other AI use cases. And with 5%, only 5% going into production, we're never going to see the return of investment that we need to continue to have this sustained investment into AI technologies. So the EU passed the EU AI Act in March this year. It's now being sort of phased in. It's in force now, so we have a couple of deadlines that are important. The important thing to know is that the EU isn't regulating the technology, but the EU recognizes that the technology can be used in harmful ways. So they've introduced a couple of categories of risk associated with the use case and the risk it has, or the impact it can potentially have on the user. So think things like credit risk scoring, if you use AI systems for that. If you use AI systems for recruitment, where there's a significant risk of discrimination, for instance. So the EU have introduced some regulatory requirements that we'll have to adhere to. And some categories of AI systems are also prohibited, things like social scoring, which we don't like in Europe, and emotion recognition in the workplace, etc. So the first thing that comes into force are the prohibited practices. So in 1st of February next year, if you have a prohibited system, you have to remove it. Otherwise, you face strong and significant fines. And also a very interesting requirement is the requirement for AI literacy, which means if you have an AI system in use in the EU single market, you'll have to provide some sort of AI literacy training for your users and your employees. And that's all good because that's going to increase our level of competencies around our understanding of what AI is and what it can be used for. So we see some very clear directions at the moment. We've seen obviously that very large language models have changed how we communicate with AI systems. But very large language models also come with a significant sustainability cost, right? Because they require so much energy. And they also come with a significant financial cost because they're trained on so much data that the tokens that are used to generate an answer generates a lot of tokens, which generates a lot of cost. So the clear direction at the moment is much smaller, much more specific models. So if you have a use case where you want to do summarization, for instance, you don't need the biggest model on the planet. What you need is a pre-trained model that's very good at summarizing, right? So it has that very good language understanding, which you can do with a lot less data than GPT, for instance. Plus, it's very specifically trained on a couple of generative tasks like summarization or output in customer service use cases, etc. And we see also the requirement to govern the large language models and the foundation models in a similar fashion that would govern machine learning and more traditional forms of AI. So very clear direction towards much smaller model, much more sustainable models. And of course, a lot of research is going into the chip technology as well. So it will come at a less energy cost and more sustainable price.